I asked for an incredibly modest raise and it was denied because of budgetary reasons. And it just was so clear that my fate was in someone else's hands. And it's like, I've been getting educated. And so that night I was literally crying on my kitchen floor.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why?
Hi everyone, I'm Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast. Today I'm here with Jessie Lang. Jessie owns and self-manages 70 plus long-term rentals in and around Columbus, Ohio. She teaches others to buy and self-manage their long-term rental portfolios and gain financial freedom. Jessie, like I mentioned, I'm going to let you tell your story. It'll be much more interesting that way for sure. But first, I want to say thank you. Thanks for coming on the podcast. Thanks for taking the time out today. I'm super excited to chat.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Why don't we start with you? Just tell us your background, kind of what got you to where you are today, and then we'll have a conversation from there.
Yeah, for sure. So what got me to where I am today in Columbus, Ohio, all the way from Austin, Texas, was a wild series of events that, basically started with, I grew up in Austin and I was watching what happened there in real estate, just values booming. And I graduated college in 2010, still in Austin. And I mean, society says, right, you get a job, you buy a house, you get married, you have kids, you do all these things. And I definitely did not do all of them, but I did have the sense to buy a crappy little condo, and it was $92,000. It had, orange shag carpet, yellow countertops, like the whole deal. And it was at the time, like truly my life savings. I was waiting tables. It was my life savings to buy this little condo. And I really kind of couldn't afford it on paper, to be honest. And so I started renting out the rooms. I just got some Craigslist roommates because this was even before Facebook Marketplace. And I just found some folks on Craigslist to rent out the rooms. And, believe it or not, it actually worked out really well. And so a couple years go by where I'm living here, making some money off my spare space. And, one of my roommates at the time was my partner. And we actually ended up splitting up. And in the span of 2 weeks, I went from living my everyday life to having 4 college boys renting out my little condo that I put so much blood, sweat, and tears into. And I joke that they could have ruined my real estate career before it ever got started. But thankfully they were great. It was all fine. And so all of a sudden overnight, I was a landlord. I was a housing provider.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it was called house hacking then when you did it, but that's kind of how I got my start in too. I bought a house that I really couldn't afford. And it was well before you did it, but it was same situation. I just wanted to, buy a house. I wanted to own it, and I wanted to, not be paying rent to someone else. And then I rented out, rooms to other people, and it worked out really well, and is a great kickstart into real estate that I think
100%.
Very, very accessible to a lot of people, despite, what it may not seem that way, but even the reality is, even if you're in like an expensive market, it might be a little harder, a little higher barrier to entry, but at the same time, bringing in those roommates, helping to pay down or pay portions of your housing expense can still put you well below, kind of whatever it might be to rent in that area. So it's a very smart first move to make into the real estate space. So, but that doesn't sound like that put you in Columbus, Ohio. So I think that there's more to this story.
But yeah, just a little bit. And so I had my first long-term rental, and I was living with a friend at the time. I was young. I had a dog and very little furniture. And so it's pretty easy to move around. And so I was renting a room from a friend while I had my long-term rental, saved up enough money to go out and buy another house for myself. And I had this model, no one told me this model. I just knew it worked once. So why wouldn't it work again? So I got some roommates.
Yeah.
And then a year passed. I do it again. I go and buy a house and I got some roommates. So at this point I have my roommates where I'm living plus 2 long-term rentals and my W-2 job that, it's been a few years at this point. I've kind of worked my way up. So I'm, in hindsight, like I was doing pretty well for early 20s, mid 20s. Yeah. And after all bills are paid, everything's paid, I'm making easy $1,000 a month just on the rentals. And so I was doing great. And 2016 comes around and I had all these pieces in place to really kind of take a step into real estate, but I didn't know that a real estate investor was a career. I had no idea. I had no role model. No one taught me. They don't teach you that in school. Hey, go buy rental properties. They don't teach you that. So instead of taking it seriously, I actually quit my job. I rented out the house I was living in and I went to go travel the world for a year, which was awesome. I would highly recommend, if there's any way you can get out and travel, go do it. So I was basically like a digital nomad. I was traveling on a program called Remote Year, and we lived in 12 countries for 1 month each. Cool. During that program, it was awesome. We had 75 people we were traveling with, which was like, lifelong best friends. It was rambunctious, but it was fun. And so I met through that year, I met my wife. I met the company that brought me to Columbus, Ohio. So the year passes and I'm like, well, what am I going to do after this? I knew I didn't want to go back to Austin. She didn't want to go back to New York. So we're like, well, what do we do? And so I was like applying for jobs all across the US, and the job just happened to be in Columbus, Ohio. And I joke, Texas public schools, like I probably couldn't even tell you where Ohio was on a map at that time. And so I was like, sure, yeah, why not? Like, let's give it a try. If we don't like it, we can just move. And that was like 8 years ago at this point.
Yeah. Well, definitely a weather. We talked a little bit of weather before we started recording, but definitely a weather difference between Austin and Columbus, Ohio. So I'm sure that was a bit of a shock to the system. Culturally, probably pretty different as well. But I just kind of want to highlight what you mentioned there about nobody really tells you can be a real estate investor as like a job, like that's your career. And it's interesting because I mean, I don't know if it's on purpose, but like almost everybody that I have ever met, even like, I mean, we've got 400 plus episodes on the podcast, like most of which are real estate investors. Almost everybody started it as a side hustle. There's probably like less than a handful of people that were I finished high school or college and just became a real estate investor. And if they did, it was probably because they worked for their parents or family members, so that was already in the space. But we all, I think a lot of people know someone who like invests in real estate, but always, even the people I knew, it always seemed to be that side hustle, side business, whatever the case may be. And now I know, there's plenty of people that sort of get into that space as that eventually that it's their only, real, I guess, income generating activity. However, I still would say that within that, people are still, they may be real estate investors, but in a large part, it's not, I think we like to talk about passive, but it's not passive in that there's always some active activity that needs to happen. And so it's whether you have a job and you take that money, that active income, and put it into real estate investments, or you have a job or a business inside real estate that helps you also sort of generate those long-term rentals, investments, whatever you want to put. I mean, I think that important to understand that it kind of does take both, at least until you're well down the road and you have, built up that essentially, putting the deposits in the bank that are really these long-term real estate investments, and they've grown over time. So you had, now when you left to travel, and I'm assuming you still had those 3 rental properties, kind of generating income for you while you're traveling. And then you moved to Columbus, and those were still there. Those were still a piece of your
So
portfolio.
during remote year, I did end up selling one because I didn't know about refinancing yet, unfortunately. I didn't know about refinancing. So I joked that I was really kind of playing real life Monopoly. Like you run out of money and you sell a house and now you have money. And
Yeah.
so that was kind of the money I needed to continue the year of travel. That was
Mhm.
like month 7, month 8. So I wanted to finish the year, of course. Then it also was kind of seed money once I did start I started off wholesaling, which we'll get to, but I needed some money for marketing and all that. So I did sell one in order to kind of keep life moving the direction it was going.
Yeah. Well, and also I would say that there's certainly you can refinance, and that's a good strategy. That's tax-free money when you refinance, but it is going to cut into your cash flow. So there's pros and cons to that. The other piece I would mention here is, because you lived in those homes, there is that also makes the sale proceeds, any appreciation that you've had, tax advantaged as well. So sometimes that's actually the right move, like financially the right move, is to get out and sort of get tax free money, because there's that, I don't even know what they call it, but you get 250,000
The 2 of the 5 years.
appreciate, yeah,
Yeah.
and 500 if you're married. I mean, so there are some big potential tax I don't know, benefits to selling within 3 to 5 years. So anyway, I just want people to kind of understand that these are all things that are maybe good to understand. You said you didn't know about refinancing, so trying to understand all the options you have, but like that's the beauty of real estate, is that optionality. So so you sold the one of them, and then kind of where to go from there.
Yeah, so I moved to Columbus for a job, and it was fun. I'm glad I did it. I'm glad it got me here, but I didn't make it more than 18 months. And this whole time I was going to real estate meetups, joined my RIA. I was doing some paid education. I kind of went through like a wholesale academy.
Mhm.
And the real kind of trigger point was that I was up for a raise, and I worked so freaking hard, and I was so good at my job. I'm just going to say it. Like, I was so good at what I was doing. And I asked for an incredibly modest raise, and it was denied because of budgetary reasons. And it just was so, so clear that my fate was in someone else's hands. And it's like, I've been getting educated. And so that night I was literally crying on my kitchen floor. Like, I just was like, crying on the floor. And my wife comes in and she's like, just quit. Like, quit.
Yeah.
Go, like,
Yeah.
take the chance. Let's do this. And she,
Yeah.
she's an entrepreneur as well. So we wanted the freedom. Like, she can travel, she can work from anywhere. And so it was me holding us back. And so she really wanted me to figure out entrepreneurship as well. And so we kind of took a hit on income. And I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Wholesaling did not make money for 6 months, 6
Mhm.
entire months to get my first deal, like fully through. I had a bunch in contract. I had a bunch that were so close, but to really finally make money, it took 6 months. And,
Yeah.
we had some savings, and I had my 2 rentals still going. So like we were fine, but it was a huge leap of faith. It really was.
It, the, yeah, that it's interesting. The whole people tend to look at a job as security, and you didn't get fired, you're laid off or anything like that, but basically you were in a job that didn't value your worth. So probably equally as bad. Ultimately, but people do get stuck in those scenarios, and afraid to take a risk on themselves. And I I guess I would argue, I there's a big maybe maybe it's less so now because the change in interest rates, I think, shifted the market dynamics of real estate, and so maybe people got less sort of noisy about leaving your W-2 job as if that was the end all be all picture of success. But I think having building these additional streams of income allows you to have that optionality
Yeah.
from your W-2 job, where like if you do want to go completely entrepreneurial, you want to start a business, you want to do something, strictly in real estate, you do have a little bit of time. You might already have, like you said, you have some of that income coming in from your rentals that you already owned. You have options. You still can go get another job, like that's fine, but you don't necessarily have to take a job that doesn't value your skill set, or stay in a job that doesn't value your skill set. And I think those things are can be honestly pretty life changing. Like just that optionality is a huge win, I think, for people that isn't really that hard to obtain. It's not really that hard to understand. Like, hey, maybe this company doesn't see what I'm providing. I should go to, it goes along with it. It used to be really looked down upon to see people that would move from job to job, every couple of years. But now the studies show that's actually how you make the most money.
Yep.
Is you basically have to leave because the company you work with won't give you the appropriate raises, as you just pointed out. So you have to leave to go to a company, which is a sad state of, I guess, business, and maybe something for business owners to understand. Like, if you have a truly valued employee, you don't let them leave just because they got paid more. Like, that's a bad move. But ultimately, that you made that decision, saw that it is hard to be an entrepreneur, which I think is not an uncommon thing for people to encounter when they first get into that space. And it I don't know that it gets easier over the time, or we just get better at it, but it is something that evolves. So how did that journey go, after that initial tough 6 months?
Yeah, tough 6 months of just kind of, lesson after lesson after lesson, but they all had a purpose, right? Because after I got that first one, it was off to the races. And I was solopreneur, doing everything myself, cold calling, texting, putting my campaigns together, taking the phone calls, negotiating, underwriting the deals, walking the properties myself, which I look back, and if my parents knew what I was doing, they probably wouldn't have been too happy. But I was doing all of it myself, selling the contracts, like building those buyer relationships, and figuring it all out, which I've always done. I've always figured it out. That's one thing that is just kind of my personality. I'm going to figure it out. And so it took a whole lot longer than it probably needed to, but I did. I figured it out. And so those next 2 years, I was really wholesaling everything. We were doing 4 to 5 contracts a month, and I still was doing most of it myself. So I mean, it was very good. There was one deal in particular I'll never forget. I made my entire salary that I walked away from on a single deal. And it was just absolute justification. It's like, all the ups and downs, like, this is clearly worth it. And not just financially, but the ability to travel. Like, we went away for a month for our wedding, and like, I just got to do just so much more freedom, flexibility. So those first 2 years, I was wholesaling everything because I didn't know how people were keeping these deals. I had only bought with owner occupant financing. Like, I lived in the house, right? And then I started buying other people's deals. I started buying off the MLS, but I was buying with 20% down conventional loans. I had no idea what hard money was. I had no idea what private money was. I didn't know any of this until it was really January 2021. I got a mentor. he actually wrote the foreword to my book that we'll talk about. And so Brad, he changed my life in so many ways. During those couple years, I was wholesaling, I dabbling, Airbnb, like my own house. I got my real estate license. I was looking at self-storage. I was doing all of these things. I was all over the place. And none of it was really going anywhere. And Brad told me, like, Jessie, pick something. Like, you have to pick one. And so I knew from my 3 long terms that was, it matched my skill set, something I was good at. So I picked long-term rentals. And I started talking to all my buyers that were buying my contracts. And I'm like, how the heck are y'all buying these things? And I was introduced to hard and private money. And I, like, in that first year, up till then, I had acquired 11 doors I called the wrong way. And it was slow. It was expensive. And then that first year, we bought 22 more using the BRRRR method. And so it has been really consistent 20, 25 doors for those first 3 years. We have slowed down a little bit with rates, but we're still buying 12 to 15 a year pretty consistently.
And these are, you're keeping them. These are, you're buying, keeping them as long-term rentals.
Yeah. Yep, exactly right. So I'm buying it. I'm renovating it. I have GC that I've worked with for probably our last 40, 45 projects that is, would do anything for me and vice versa. I've built an amazing team. My lenders are solid. It's really, at this point, it's just rinse and repeat. I buy the same kind of deal in the same neighborhoods for the same prices. It rents the same. I have the same, kind of resident. And it's just so repetitive in a good way. It's like, I don't want to say I don't have to think, because obviously we're always on our toes, but I know so much what to expect from just my personal experience.
Yeah. Well, that piece about your mentor saying, you got to pick one, and I think that it proved true, right? You did that, and it really allowed you to kind of, scale up and be more effective. And if you're doing one or two things, it's a lot easier to get that dialed in and be really have a lot of expertise and grow the team in that specific area. Like, are all of these are all, you said, same neighborhoods and things. So everything around Columbus, is that kind of your focus area?
So Central Ohio, we're in about 15 zip codes.
Okay. Yeah. But not like all over the country, which I think is something that I learned, I guess, somewhat the hard way. Is, you hear about, oh, this is a good market, this is a good market, this is a good market. Like, okay, well, I want to get into all of those good markets. And then what you realize is it's very hard to be excellent all spread out. And so it's kind of, being able to get in that groove in a specific area, I think, can be hugely beneficial to whatever business model that you're operating under. So that's really a great example of that. Tell us about that book. You mentioned the foreword. Tell us about the book and kind of what people should be looking for on that.
Yeah. So it is called Rentals Made Easy, and I help you unlock the proven step-by-step system to build wealth through rental properties. It is literally every lesson that I've learned. It's every mistake that I've made. We go through the full buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat that people so overlook, right? There's like steps to make sure this is scalable. We talk about ongoing management. We talk about mindset, raising money, deal sources. It's literally like a step-by-step guide in order to build this yourself. Now, this is the book format of my Rentals Made Easy Mastermind, which is kind of working one-on-one. But if you just want the blueprint itself, this is where to start. And it's on Amazon. We have a ebook and then also paperback. And I am working on the audiobook by demand, but it turns out that's like kind of hard to put together.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you have to read the entire book. So
Yeah.
I'm working on the audiobook. That should be out, I don't next couple months.
Nice, amazing. No, congratulations on that. I mean,
I
that's
think
a very cool thing to be able to, sort of put your experiences and lessons learned both good and bad, um, into a format where people, other people can use it and take advantage of it.
it's
Um,
totally accessible. I mean, there aren't,
yeah,
I read tons of business and education books, and it's, it's just crazy that you can get someone's decades of experience for, 15, $20.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's
It's
wild.
really
And
true.
podcasts too,
Yeah,
for free even.
yeah,
These
yeah.
kind of platforms are incredible for the learning from others.
Yeah. I would say, in today's environment, you really can't argue that the information is not available to you. So it's really on you to put it to use and to, I mean, you've got to, back to the point earlier, you've got to pick a lane. Like you've got to do. I think real estate is amazing because it can mean so many different things. There's so many different types of opportunities and asset classes, and even within asset classes, way to be involved. And I think that's maybe the best part about it and potentially the worst part about it, because it can be overwhelming to pick, like, oh, what do I want to do then? Like, what's my thing that I want to do? And I think a lot of times it comes down to some level of trial and error, and kind of figuring out what works for you. And then, as you did, saying, okay, I know this specific piece, and now I'm just going to kind of really, really dial in and make that even better, and scale it from there. Um, the BRRRR method was very, very popular. I would say probably until rates went up in 2022. Um, in and I when I say popular, I'm saying like something people talked a lot about on social media and kind of out publicly, and then it seemed to go away. And I even heard people, some big name people, being like, "Oh, it's not really an effective strategy anymore." Sounds like it is. Sounds like, and I think that's like where I'm going with this. Is I feel like that is another piece of the puzzle in terms of real estate being so, um, I don't, ubiquitous, maybe, like it just, that it's market specific, it's asset class
Mhm.
specific, it's operator specific. Like there's so many different things that can, work for one person and just might not be the skill set of another person. And so for you, you said you were doing, I think, about 25, but now it's more like 10 or 15 in a year. I mean, that's still a great real estate portfolio to be
Oh yeah.
building in a year, and you're keeping them. Like and I think like that's something to be really pointed out here, is that these are, using the BRRRR strategy, you're not flipping them, you're not necessarily, um, trying to get rid of them. Like these are long-term holds. And so as you do this, now your cash flow from these rentals will continue to go up and up and up over time as rents increase, and all of that. It's just I think, um, a somewhat overlooked strategy in today's, I don't know, real estate environment, but like so important.
I will say I've seen all the same Burr is dead. They're wrong. And I'm
Yeah.
just they're trying to sell you the next thing.
Yeah.
Like Burr is not dead. It is fundamental. I did not invent it by any means. I don't know who technically invented it, but Bigger Pockets coined the term. And
Yeah. The term is
yeah, I think people
relatively
have probably
new.
been doing it for a long time. But yeah, so
Right.
Bigger Pockets coined
Yeah.
the term, and they like I've even kind of seen them saying Burr's dead. And I'm like, it's not, y'all. In Central Ohio or the Midwest, I have
Mhm.
students. I mean, nationwide, but a lot here in the Midwest that are not only like burring, they're actually pulling money out of deals. And it
Yeah.
doesn't happen every time, but you can still pull money out. We are pulling 15K out of a deal that I closed this morning, and you don't you don't see that. You like, where else do you get to not only make money but also keep the asset long term. And
Right.
even if you do end up leaving some money in the deal, say you left 10, 15, 20K in a property that's worth $200,000. If you were putting 20% down on that same property, that's 40K. You're still coming out so far ahead
Mm-hmm.
that it's a no-brainer. To me, is a no-brainer that the strategy works. Plus, you have an asset that's standardized. My entire portfolio looks the exact same flooring, same paint, same finishes. We finished them all identically. So I have a standardized portfolio that's really easy to manage. I've taken care of my big capital expenditures up front. So, I'm not getting hit with windows or AC or furnace or roof or anything like that, because I've taken care of all these things. And so to me, even if you end up leaving money in a deal, it is still so far superior to any other strategy as far as building long-term rentals.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that's, yeah, I don't know why. Well, I do know why. I think because mostly everybody's selling something. So that's why people say, this doesn't work and this works. This is the best thing now. And this is the best thing now. But the reality again is it's like you have to look at it from, as you said, like that long-term perspective, right? You leave a little bit of money in a deal, but it's cash flowing for you monthly. It's going to appreciate over time. Like, your rents are going to go up over time. It's just, if you're building for the future, it still makes a lot of sense. I mean, important to remind people, like, most of that cash flow, the refinance money, like all of that's tax free. So it's not like, oh, you do this refinance and I have to pay half of it in taxes. Like, I get all that money and I can roll it into the next one. And that kind of, so it's just, it takes a minute probably to get it going to the level that you have, more than a minute, but it takes some time to sort of establish that level of repeatability and scale. But I mean, you mentioned some things that I think, I'm sure some of this is in the book, but you mentioned some things that I think are really important in the sense of scale and creating a true business out of it, where a lot of people, same thing, people that flip houses, they look, most people, like, every flip house looks the same. Every house that they do, it's like you said, like same paint, same cabinets, counters, like all of that stuff. Like, you can watch HGTV and say, oh, look at, like, we're flipping custom homes type, but like, that's not what most people that flip at scale are doing. They're really just kind of finding, like you said, like the same house, buy it the same way, fix it the same way, and do exit it the same way that you do on all the others. And it's maybe doesn't sound as exciting, but
Who
like,
cares? Boring
right,
is
exactly.
great.
Who cares? You're gonna make more money doing it that way than trying to sort of customize every single one. So it's
And I
just a
do.
smart strategy.
So we have a section in the book about HGTV trap, and that that's just what it is. Like, you're gonna get into a trap if you think you're doing that. I will say we do a couple flips a year, cash infusion, keep the lights on, all that, and I do some fun stuff. I try to do some fun stuff. My personal house is quirky, it's colorful, we have art everywhere. Like, I have a creative side, but it's not my rental business. Like, that is cookie cutter. Like, if you want to be creative, y'all, make your money in rentals and go buy a dream house and get creative all you want. But don't try to get creative on your portfolio. It is going to backfire.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's exactly like we talked about earlier, is you said that you mentioned the flips. There's some, when you're building a long-term rental portfolio, you do need some level of cash infusion income somehow, like whether that's a job or a flip. It can be in or out of real estate. It doesn't really matter. I think if you're doing real estate at that scale, it makes a whole lot of sense for your, those cash infusions to come in the form of real estate, because real estate. And if you find one that you get, an especially good an especially good purchase price and someone wants to come in and pay you top dollar for that flip, well, you can pivot and make that decision and say that, hey, this is a good one for a cash infusion. So it's just I think you use that creative side, like you said, in your own home or your hobbies, whatever you want to do, but also you can use it in the business development side of what you're
Mm-hmm.
doing. You don't need to come up with some new design for each rental, for each, it's like when
Please
we
don't.
do our apartment renovations, like we don't talk about the paint color. Like it's gonna be the same paint color we don't talk about it ever. Like it's just something that this is what's gonna happen. So it's kind of like um, just having some of that stuff dialed in. It saves time and money, and um, there's a lot of there's a lot to be said for eliminating decisions. Ultimately, like this is how we do it. No one has to ask that question when we do it again and again and again and again. So I think it's a really makes a
Like
lot of
the
sense the way that you're.
Steve Jobs effect, where you wear a black turtleneck every day and no one has any questions, and we move on, and one less thing to think about. So,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally. And my GC, we've done our last like 40 projects together, and they know every single standard that I have, and
Mm-hmm.
Greg is my main point of contact. And sometimes, if I'm doing a podcast or he can't get a hold of me, I'll get the original text. 10 minutes later, I'll get a text that's like, hey, I know you're going to do this. So I just made the decision. I'm like, thumbs up, let's go. And so
Right.
that you earn that by doing the same thing over and over. If you're trying to change it every time, then you are the bottleneck and your decisions are the bottleneck when your team could easily be making these for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what scaling looks like. That's what scaling looks like. Creating enough systems in place and trust with your team that they don't need you to tell them, how to fix every little thing. Like you're much better off having people on the team that do come to you with those solutions. So I think that's such a great place to be in and have built to. So I think that's just fantastic. Um, well, Jesse, let me change gears here a little bit. I want to make sure I get to ask you a couple questions before we wrap up. The first one is, of course, based on the name of the show being Know Your Why. So what is your why? What's the driver behind all this? You've had a lot of success, but it doesn't sound like you're stopping soon.
No, not stopping. I'm gonna be so truthful and blunt with this. My original why was always fear. Like I didn't grow up with a lot and my family struggled, and I knew from a very, very early age that that is not what I wanted. I didn't know how I would get there, but it was like starting out very fear driven. It's like how do I get out of this? Like what skill set do I have? What am I interested in? And I was just desperately trying to figure it out. And then, finally figured out real estate, and it still was fear. It's like you got to get the next deal. You have to get the next deal. I have to work on my retirement. I have to do this, that, and the other. And now that we've kind of hit those points, it's the pyramid that my basic needs are met. And so now I get to move up the pyramid. And so my why in the last couple of years has really shifted, less from fear and more to, how do I give back and how do I become the best housing provider out there? And, sometimes we make decisions that are not profitable, and
Mhm.
it's because I have a responsibility to uphold to my residents and to the people, families counting on us. So it's a lot about just doing the right thing and giving back. And we don't have children, so that's everyone's wise for my kids, but we don't have kids. We don't really want kids, and so I don't have that one. But it's more just kind of bigger picture, like my local community and friends and family, and my parents, and being able to take care of them and all that. So it's been such an interesting journey to like watch myself grow and watch that shift from fear and how do I make sure that I can eat every day to, how can I do the best I can for the world?
Yeah. Yeah. Fairly certain the same reason I bought a house the first time I did was just, I was like, yeah, I saw what not owning a house looked like. And all the times that I moved and all the like stuff that went along with that through childhood. And then um, just thought, hey, if I own the house, then no one's going to tell me like, I gotta go. I got like nobody's gonna say, "Hey, we're moving again." You're not. And, when I first bought it, I didn't have kids, but it's like no one's gonna tell me that my kids are starting a new school the next year. Like that is a decision we will make, and it's kind of like if that were to ever come up. So I think that is a place where maybe a lot of us start, and I think it probably doesn't always go away completely. At least not for me. There's always that little
Yeah, no, that's safe. It's safe
reminder
to
from
say.
from childhood that it's like, hey, but you can take that fear, that drive, and scale that along with sort of everything else you do. It's like, okay, now myself and my family, we've, like you said, reached that level of needs met. Well, let's bring some other people up the pyramid. Let's kind of spread that out. So I think that's amazing, and really resonates with me and sort of my experiences and start in real estate as well. You mentioned the book. When people want to connect, they want to they hear this and they're interested in connecting and hear about your mastermind. Where's the best place to send them?
Yeah, so we have a Facebook group. It's called Unlocked Learn to Buy and Manage Long-Term Rentals. I'm sure we can put it in the show notes.
Yep.
And I go live every single week with trainings, guests, all sorts of different real estate topics. We do freebies, we do giveaways, we do all sorts of fun stuff. It's totally free to be there. I'll answer your questions, whatever you need. So that is Unlocked Learn to Buy and Manage Long-Term Rentals on Facebook. Instagram is Jessie Lang Official, and I'm on those pretty frequently, so you can find me.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely get all of that in the show notes so people can connect. Well, Jessie, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Really have enjoyed hearing about your journey and your story. I think it's a lot of valuable stuff there for people listening to I don't want to minimize it and say like it's an easy way to get into real estate, but it might be one of the easier, I guess, in the sense that like you can lower barrier to entry, and it's not without work and sacrifice and all of that, but I do think it's a really smart way to get started. So thank you for being on the show and sharing all of this. I'm super excited for the audience to hear it and connect through your Facebook group and all of that.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Folks listening, make sure you connect with Jessie, check out her Facebook group and the book, and please like, rate, and review the show so we can continue to get more great guests. As always, thank you for listening.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why?